Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. As hundreds around the country protested today over the killing of Janak Patel and the risk faced by all retail workers, the government announced its multi-million-dollar attempt at a solution. It will provide $4,000 to every small shop and dairy that wants to install a fog cannon. There will be a new $4 million fund for the Auckland, Hamilton and Bay of Plenty councils to run crime prevention programs, and they're extending the $6 million retail crime prevention fund to include not just ram raids but aggravated robberies too. We'll have more details on those moves in a moment. But first, here's Nick Truebridge with an emotional appeal from Janak Patel's father.
At the front door of the Prime Minister's office, sorrow becomes anger. Sick of being targeted, sick of seeing their family, friends and workmates killed. And in the middle of it all, a broken man, Janak Patel's father, mourning the loss of his only son.
He says he wants the harshest punishment for the offenders, and give. He doesn't want another Janak to lose his life.
Nor does anyone here, and as the crowd grew, so too did their frustration, taking over the main road, refusing to budge. Those protesting Janak's death have now covered the road. Emotions are extremely high here. This is what it means to these people to lose one of their own. As tensions reach a high, some said they wouldn't leave without an audience with Jacinda Ardern or her parliamentary colleagues.
I want something statement from her. If she is not coming, then someone from the Labour need to come and give us a statement what they are doing about this.
They have a message, no more. This has to be a turning point.
Only one son passed away, and in such a tragic way. And we do not want to see the repetitions of this. Come on, this has to be turning point. It doesn't matter whether you sit in the parliament, or whether you sit at home, or whether it's dairy.
Janak's brother-in-law tells us years earlier another member of the slain dairy workers' family was also targeted, held up at a Papatoetoe dairy.
Same happened with his sister as well. That's very bad.
And you don't need to look much further for others who have feared for their lives.
Just one guy come in and just knock me down in here for no reason, and I take another 10-15 packet cigarette.
So around the country, they closed their doors in solidarity. In Sandringham, just around the corner from the site of Janak Patel's death, every single shop, apart from the local pharmacy, shut its doors for 2 hours. They shunned lucrative lunch services. This is so much bigger than that.
We are doing for Mr. Janak Patel. It's really, really bad situation. We are not really happy.
All of it in memory of a fallen brother, son, husband, friend.
Well, Nick joins us now. Kia ora, Nick. Are there any more protests planned over this issue?
Yeah, Mike. Well, as you saw in that piece, there was certainly a lot of frustration today about the fact that no one from the Prime Minister's office, certainly not the Prime Minister herself, was there to front for these protesters. And that source of frustration will go into what seems to be, or what sounds like, a second protest that will be held on Sunday. We understand it will be held in central Auckland, around Queen Street, and we're expecting it to attract thousands of people. Of course, today was hundreds, but that could attract thousands. So certainly, Mike, the frustration is growing. The action is not over yet. We expect more to come by the end of this week.
And Nick, what about the 3 men who have been arrested in relation to this case? What's happening to them?
Yeah, so we know, of course, that the man charged with murder in this case in his 30s appeared in Auckland District Court on Saturday. Well, what we can tell you is today 2 more people, both charged with robbery, also appeared in Auckland District Court. Now, the robbery is said to include charges around the stealing of things like vapes, stealing of the cash register and stealing of butane lighters. These robberies occurred on the same day that Mr. Patel was allegedly stabbed and killed. Now, those 2 individuals have been remanded in custody. They will reappear along with the murder accused in December. Mike.
Nick, tēnā koe.
Well, as we mentioned, the government has announced a crime crackdown in the wake of Janak Patel's death.
It'll pour millions into a fund to install fog cannons, as well as significantly ramping up the management of its crime prevention fund to get more money out the door. Political editor Jenna Lynch has the details.
As a community mourns, a Prime Minister can pay respects in many ways. Flowers, empathy, condolences, but the most meaningful, protection.
Our goal is to make sure people feel safe at work.
So as dairy owners shut up shop, the government put up policy extending access to government subsidies for crime prevention tools.
No one should go to their place of work feeling that they are vulnerable to senseless violence and crime.
Introducing a new untargeted fog cannon subsidy scheme. The government will pay $4,000 towards a fog cannon for any small retail business that feels vulnerable, whether they've been hit before or not.
Very few businesses where a fog cannon's been deployed have been the subject of re-victimisation, so they work. That's one of the reasons why we want to see their expansion.
But there's only 6 installers, so the government isn't expecting huge numbers until at least April.
We won't be able to do this overnight. There is a supply constraint.
An exercise in expectation management, perhaps, after a snail's start to the Retail Crime Prevention Fund. More than 100 stores have had crime prevention installations approved, between them 93 fog cannons, 43 bollards and 36 roller doors, but the number of stores that have had the work completed is just 8. That fund now being extended to not just ram raid victims, but aggravated robbery victims too. The PM denies it took a death for them to take notice.
We're saying if you feel vulnerable, we want you to be able to access support.
Over the past year, there have been 517 ram raids, resulting in 360 prosecutions and 145 youth services referrals.
Yeah, my personal view is the government has been soft on crime. A primary responsibility of any government is to make sure it protects its citizens so they feel safe in their houses, in their businesses and in their communities.
I will not stand by and have anyone call this government soft on crime. We have been the opposite, firm and fact-based.
But the one thing missing today, tougher penalties.
And I think there is more work for the government to do to make sure that there are consequences, serious consequences for serious repeat offenders.
So expect him to stick to the soft on crime line.
Well, Jenna Lynch joins us now. Jenna, why did this take so long?
Yeah, as you heard there, the Prime Minister is denying it took a death for her to act. She said she was working on the third peg of this policy for weeks. That is the $4 million going to Auckland, Tauranga and Hamilton councils to install lighting, bollards and CCTV in their cities. It's likely that announcement was planned as part of the Hamilton West by-election, but they've had to accelerate that because there is no denying this tragedy has put a spotlight on the retail crime crisis like never before, as well as a spotlight on some of the failures of the government initiatives in this space. 8 stores have had their security work completed. The government needed to act. The Prime Minister will later this week be meeting with Indian community leaders as well as meeting with the family of Janek Patel and making up for lost time after she took too long to visit her own electorate, her own community, a community that was full of fear and grief.
Our political editor Jenna Lynch there live from Parliament. Thanks, Jenna.